I thought I took it off pause, but you're right, I wasn't. Okay, so as I was saying, oh great, my little funny stuff didn't get on there. That's all right. Um, I was going to say that, things have changed a lot since the days when we auditioned for one or two schools. In the early 2000s, it was 3 to 4 schools, and then early 2010s, five or more. And now it's up to 15 to 25. So I need to talk to the experts and find out, how do we get a leg up? How do we have our students, ourselves, our children to have the best possible preparation for college auditions? And so I've broken our discussion into three sections: applications, admissions, auditions, and acceptance and aftermath, because I like alliteration. And I have invited Elizabeth Futral from Peabody as one of our classical performers and also classical teachers, Andrew Ryker from Ohio University, Karla Hughes from Viterbo, where she is in charge of the musical theater program, and Matt Edwards from Shenandoah, where he is in charge of the program and also runs the contemporary commercial music program, and also an author of books such as So You Want to Sing Rock and Roll. All of this is going to be put in the chat. I am putting the bios for everybody in the chat, and they worked earlier when I tried them. Yes. So if you want to look up everybody, feel free to do that. I don't really want to spend too much time on bios in what we're doing, because I did a lot of marketing for this, so you can all read. Oh, it's going well here. So let's start. Let's start with application and admission requirements. So um, application wise, what kind of format do you use for applications, and when do you think people should start applying? Uh, let's see, Matt, why don't you go first?
Well, I think that in general, start applying as soon as you can. It's not uncommon that you'll hit some sort of a roadblock along the way. And so you want to, get your application in. Now, for most schools, you're going to have one application to the university itself, and then you're going to have a second application that then goes into the theater department or the music department for whichever degree you're pursuing. On that one, it depends where you are. There's some students that decided at the end of their junior year of high school that this is what they wanted to do, and they don't already have the songs down. And so, in that instance, I would say get your songs right. You don't want to delay it and be turning it in the last day, but I'd rather it come in October, the end of October, with really solid rep than have it come in September because you were told to get it in early and it's not prepared. But if you are really well prepared and you have it all together, then try to get in a little bit earlier if possible. What we tell everybody who applies to Shenandoah is pre-screen by Halloween.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Is it the same for you at Ohio, Andrew?
Yeah, I think that that's really good advice, Matt. I think we hear people about as late as we possibly can. I mean, especially in this COVID year, our numbers were funny. People are showing up a little later than normal. And so, there's always a little bit of fluctuation. So I'd say just reach out and ask if you aren't sure. Is it too late to apply? Is it too late to audition? Even if it says it on that website, because, those are sort of administrative notes that don't necessarily reach us that are in the trenches doing this. So that's what I'd say. That, and I think I'm jumping ahead here, but one more thing I wanted to throw in is in regards to admission, how Matt said that you have to apply for the School of Music or whatever, and also for the university. That is very true. And I will tell you, you are most likely not going to get an offer until both of those things happen. So do not skip that submitting the university application, because most of us have rules where we are not allowed to make a scholarship offer until that whole thing is done.
Karla, is the same thing true at Viterbo?
Partially, that what was just said, just the last thing was said is absolutely true for us. We have a rolling admission at Viterbo University. So any pre-screens that we ask for, and we do use accepted for those, have a deadline prior to the audition date. And we have, about 8, 9 audition dates. So I just looked at what we had last year. What's our new season is not quite up yet. But so let's say you wanted to do the March 6th audition, you needed to have your pre-screens be applied to the university, have an accepted, all of that good stuff to the university itself by February 29th. So we give a little bit more time, and every school is different how they work things. But earlier is always better. Admission for us is actually rolling. So 2 to 3 weeks after your audition, you can expect to hear from us whether you were accepted, waitlist, or offered another position in a different area, that sort of thing, or not accepted. But we won't even schedule you for an audition unless you have been applied and been accepted to the university itself first.
Same thing is true at Peabody, Elizabeth?
Actually, ours is a bit more concise. If you apply to Peabody, you are applying to Homewood, unless you apply for a double degree at Homewood campus, Johns Hopkins, and Peabody. So
And that's something
if you're,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, if you're just applying to the conservatory, you are considered that you're applying also to Hopkins. So it's not two separate things there. Ours is not rolling. Our deadline in the fall is December 1st. We have an early admissions, which is early decision, November 1st. But in terms of earlier rather than later, we're not going to hear your pre-screens until after December 1st, period. So we're not listening as they come in at Peabody. Just no, FYI.
So I was going to ask something about, for example, doing a double major or an academic a minor in a different field. How is that? Is that something that's an option? For Peabody, you have to go over to Hopkins.
Yeah, it is an option for us. It's a little tricky because we're two separate campuses, as you know, Christine, 2 miles apart from each other. There are shuttles that go back and forth, but scheduling is tricky, if you're going to do a double degree, and it just requires, a great student, a great GPA, and a great sense of motivation and hard work to get that
I'm
done.
assuming that since Ohio University is a university, that's not an issue there.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, we do a great deal of making sure students understand what they're bringing, what they're taking on, because any sort of degree program with music, all of us that have done a music degree know that that's going to be pretty crazy. But if it's the knowledge, if you are willing to take on that extra work and maybe even that extra year, we say go for it.
Karla, same thing at Viterbo?
Yes, Viterbo is a small campus, smaller school. So the biggest issue for us comes, the short answer is yes, and absolutely minors can work. The double major, it can work. It's scheduling that can be tricky with us. The classes are very much condensed into the same hours of the day, and of course, just like it was just said by Andrew, that we're busy. We keep students hopping, and it can be difficult to get in, let's say, that accounting class that you need or something like that. It's not impossible. Certainly, the more more college credits that you can bring in would be helpful in that situation. But I like to be upfront and realistic. It might take you an extra semester to an extra year. So thinking of the undergraduate as 5 years rather than 4. I know that 4 years is very important. And we've worked very hard to get our degree programs all with that 120 credit marks range into a 4-year program. But just so people are aware, I say an education is never a mistake. And anybody who discourages you from that second degree that you want, I'd really look into that. I'd really, find out why they're discouraging you. Again, an education is never a mistake.
Matt, how about Shenandoah?
So a double major is pretty much impossible. In 11 years, I've never seen anybody do it. But minors are common. But again, like what Karla mentioned, it's a lot easier if you're coming in with those college credits ahead of time, or if you want to take summer classes. Now, the one thing that we do have that's pretty unique at Shenandoah that is easy to do is we have a 5th year option where you just stay on, and it's all online now. It used to be a combo, it's all online. And if you apply for it in your sophomore year, you start taking classes here and there your junior and senior year. And then in that 5th year, you finish all the business classes and you walk away with a master's in arts administration. And so that's a really cool option. And, you know, they're transferable skills. And so what you're learning in that degree is going to apply to any nonprofit, not just arts nonprofits.
Going back to the idea of you have to be a good student. So how important is GPA SAT scores for admission to a performance program?
Can I hop in on that? Actually, I wanted to throw in one little note on what Matt just said. At least for me, in the last 2 institutions that I've taught, I think it's important to know that one of the degree options that's easiest for double majoring is the Bachelor of Arts. You are required to do a lot of studying in other departments for that kind of degree. So if you have a student that really wants to get it all done in 4 years, I suggest not pursuing that Bachelor of Vocal Performance sort of thing, because, or the music ed degree is crazy, but if you want to teach, you have to get a music ed degree. But the BA gives you a lot of flexibility. So that's usually where we steer people here at Ohio University, and I taught for 8 years at Drake University, and we did the same exact thing there. Double majors, look at the BA. Now, you just asked a new question. What was it?
Yeah, and somebody did actually ask about the if there are different requirements for a BA versus a BFA.
Oh yeah, the academics.
But I think that rather than address that, that is something that I think is something that people can access from websites.
Yeah, I think so too. And you know, everywhere is so different. I'm not gonna lie, we are not we're not like a very academic institution. I mean, we are an incredible institution, but we aren't one of the top hardest to get in the country. And so those academics aren't going to make a big deal. What you're really wanting to do in an audition is try to get the top scholarship, not just get in. So that's important, you know. We look at things like that because we're looking, what kind of student is this? But I don't know that it's going to make for us a huge difference on whether you're going to get in it or not. But like I said, in my last school, it would have, you know, the university just says no.
You mentioned scholarships. Are they merit-based or are they academically based, or both?
I'm talking about talent scholarships right now, but you know, certain institutions will have, I forget the term, but add those on top of each other. If you have an academic scholarship, you can also add a talent scholarship on top of it and all of that. And then other institutions are weird. So wait for those financial aid packages before you make a final decision. That's for sure.
Anybody else have anything to say about GPA, SATs?
If you can keep it up, it's a good thing, because a lot of schools will give more academic money for higher test scores and GPA, and especially like at Shenandoah, you can end up with a 3.8 and like 1,200 SAT qualifying for like a $20,000 scholarship on academics alone. So if you can do it and keep those grades up, it does tend to pay off.
Okay. We're very much the same way at Viterbo. The same thing, keep those academics up. The higher the scores, the more, we call it merit-based scholarship at Viterbo, you're going to receive. As far as what's nice about sort of the application process is if you are not accepted to the school, you will not be allowed to audition. And that, I mean, and that sounds awful, but it is nice because it knows, okay, I can spend my time on this school. I'm in the door. Now, can I get a spot in music theater, music, that sort of thing? And I really like that process because I myself had a 2.1 coming out of high school. I have a learning disability that was not discovered until I was a senior in college, and my university helped me figure that out. And I fortunately had a good audition and a department that really wanted me, and so they walked my application through. But I am living, and I've never met anybody who has scored lower on the SAT than me, ever, in my 17 years at Viterbo. And again, that learning disability was just very, very difficult on standardized tests. So, again, live your dream, go for it. And some schools will be interested and some schools won't.
Folks, I've got a problem here, and I just switched my address, and I'm supposed to be. I am on Zoom Pro, but for some reason they're moving me. Hold on one second. I was afraid of this, but it didn't happen yesterday. So hold on.
If you want to make one of us co-host, Christine, then one of us could press record.
Okay, because I do have a pro thing, and it's how do I do that? Make a co-host.
Just down in
yeah, make host. Okay.
Yeah.
You want to be host, Liz?
Sure, I'm happy to.
All right.
So
all right.
Riffing on I'll press it when it stops. Riffing on Karla's comments, I think our bottom GPA is 3.0. There's probably some wiggle room beneath that, probably in the same vein that you were talking about, Karla. If your audition was wowzers and we just love you and want you there, and you can sort of, substantiate the claim of having a learning disability, well, we're going to listen to that. We're going to take it all into account, and we're going to put all the pieces together for you because we care about the person in front of us. So the GPA matters, the merit matters, the financial need matters, and all of those things kind of combined together. It's a big process, but our admissions department really takes care to kind of try to balance all of those things. One other thing that we have at school, which is great, is if you do have kind of a showable financial need, our freshmen are given a substantial scholarship just based on that, period. And it came through a big grant from Bloomberg, I believe. So that's a nice gift that we got a couple of years ago that keeps on giving.
I want to start moving towards pre-screens, but I want to ask a couple of questions. How many schools should a student audition for? Anybody?
I'd say nowadays at least like 4 or 5. I don't know that it really matters if this place that you're going to is not a top-notch university. Audition soon, find out, and then move on after that. But yeah, if I'm 40 now, and I think I auditioned for 14 schools back in like the late 90s. And so I'm saying that from that perspective. But from my perspective, you don't have to audition for 1 million. I think that's just, sorry, keep going.
No, I was going to say, I would agree with that. And I think the more important piece of that is that you are really concentrating on the places where you want to go. I mean, how do you really want to go to the 14 or 20 different places? No, you're going to find teachers at these places. You're going to find programs that meet your needs. And those really settle down into a top 4, 5, 6 places, perhaps. But you're just spreading yourself, I think, too thin in kind of what your goals and desires are for yourself and your degree, if you're opening yourself up to so much variety in so many different places. That's my opinion.
Now, that's a classic perspective. What about musical theater?
Well, I was going to say, I think that in music theater, it really depends on what schools you're auditioning for. So to give a reference, we do 2 kinds of pre-screens: live pre-screens where we travel to conferences and things and see students, and pre-recorded pre-screens. We usually see between 500 and 700 live pre-screens. So that's where we then call back people. We'll watch 200 people at a thespians festival and call back 2 or something like that. Then last year, direct video pre-screen applicants was 754. And so if you look at 1,250 to 1,450 applicants for Shenandoah, and there's probably a dozen other schools that are getting that many as well, if not a little bit more, that's where I start saying, if you're trying to hit that tier, 15. Because it's, we've rejected kids who've already been on Broadway. There is no golden ticket. And so it's, it is very tricky. So there's nothing that's a sure bet in the music theater scene the way it is right now, especially like we're aiming for a class of 18. And so, but I think it depends. If you're not shooting up at those schools that are in that, we call it the lottery, your odds are almost better to win the lottery. And that's a whole other conversation because we even know it kind of sucks. But if that's where you are targeting, then you got to look at those numbers. If you're going, hey, this is brand new to me, I'm targeting like schools in my state that have theater programs, then you can probably cut the number down and start getting more into that 5 to 7.
Let's turn to our students then. How many schools did you audition for? Are there any schools you wish you hadn't applied for? Do you feel like you wasted some time on some of them? Or how do you feel about that? Olive, I'll ask you first.
I think overall I applied for 15, but I only ended up auditioning for 6. And I did feel like some of them were probably kind of a waste, just not so much like a waste of time really, because they all had like the common pre-screen. So it wasn't like too much extra energy, but it was just like a lot of them were just schools that like I just had heard a lot about, but it wasn't so much that I was like really like wanting to go there or that I really felt like I had a good chance or anything, but it just like seemed like I should apply. And I feel like I should have, if I could like go back and do it, I should have like done more research and had more of an idea of like what my chances were at each school, because I really didn't know for a lot of them. There were some that I was like, I know I'm not going to pass that pre-screen, and there were some that I was like, I feel pretty good about my chances. But for the majority, like I had no idea, because you can't like predict that a lot of the times. So so I guess I would advise to like look for, like really look into and figure out like what like the reach school and the target and the like safety more than I did, I think would be a good idea.
Okay. Iyana, how about you? And did I pronounce your name right?
You did pronounce it right. I applied to 17 schools. 3 of them I didn't apply for any type of music major, so did not credit those ones. So for 15, I got into 5. So like Olive said, there were some of them where I feel like I shouldn't have applied to. It was kind of not, like she said, not a waste of time. But I did apply to schools like Juilliard and Curtis Institute of Music. And there was also schools on the other end, like Howard University, which is known for so many things. The classical music department is not one of them. So I just feel like there was lots of things that I should have taken into more account. I feel like I could have probably gotten away with applying to like 4 to 7 schools, like which was said earlier.
Okay. And Lauren.
So I applied to 19, which was a lot. But I definitely echo what both of them said, is just trying to get a feel for what you're looking for and trying to research, what morals, what views does this school have, and how does that align with my own? Because I feel like for finding the basis of the schools I was going to apply to, I was like, oh, let's look at a ranking list online, when that isn't necessarily going to give me like the best view of what the school is going to offer me and how I'm going to fit in there. So definitely just trying to research how you can fit into this place and how that's going to align with like how you feel and your own morals and stuff like that.
Okay. Let's move on to the pre-screen. Classically, what do the classical schools, at least your schools, require for the pre-screen? But do you both require pre-screens? I know Peabody does. Does Ohio?
We do not require pre-screens. For my own master's studies, I did pre-screens, and we love to get videos because it's great for us to go back to if we have questions, but we don't require them.
Okay. Elizabeth, of course, there.
We do, and the audition requirements are the same for the pre-screen as they are for the live audition later, if you get accepted to that. And it's three songs and 2 languages, including English, so 1 other language.
This is actually a question I had for later for repertoire, but do you allow musical theater as far as your English song?
We do. Yeah, we're not a musical theater school. We're classical, but we offer some musical theater courses, and we do this and that around musical theater. So it's not forbidden, and certainly not for the audition.
Andrew, I see from your bio, which I was really impressed by. You've done a lot. I think we're coming back. Hello, are we all coming back? Okay, I think we're all back. Let me just get myself on camera. Whew. Well, I'm going to have to tweak that in. It still happened anyway, so we'll just do that. And if it happens again,
in a COVID world, it's just another day in the life.
I usually I switched my email address to my studio address, and because I did that, it gave me a new account.
Yeah.
And I requested that the new account have my I requested that the new account be the owner of it, but for some inexplicable reason that didn't happen. Well, we'll just do it this way, and if it happens, I'll just then cut and paste things. It'll work out. Okay, so what was I saying?
Pre-screen.
Pre-screen. Pre-screen by Halloween. Requirements: 3 songs, 2 languages. Andrew, I was asking Andrew, are you still there? Did I lose you? Trying to find everybody on my thing. Andrew, maybe you cut off from Rare Storms. Okay, well, I'm sure he will be back. So what are the requirements for the musical theater programs for pre-screens?
Since I'm unmuted, I'll go with it. We use the common pre-screen. At Shenandoah, I just want to hear 2 things that you can sing that are the best that you can sing. It needs to be music theater or pop rock. We don't want any classical rep. And then a monologue that shows you off. And we want to see something that lets us get a taste of who you are as a person. We also love singer-songwriters, and we love people that play an instrument. So one of those can, be any of that stuff, right? We love it if you sit and play piano, or if you've written a song and you want to send in one of your songs. We have a wild card option that we'll use on the pre-screen for that. But in the actual in-person audition, we're fine with people, using any of that rep.
Okay.
We have a dance component too. And I would say on the dance component's tricky. The dance component is really good for you if you are an amazing dancer and you want us to see how good you are compared to your singing and acting. If you're an amazing singer and actor and dance is your weak point, I wouldn't send the dance video. I would kind of hold back on that. If you're somewhere in the middle and money's tight and you want to make sure you're only traveling to places where you feel like it's going to be a good, possible fit that they might actually want you, then send in the dance. And even if you are a stellar singer, bad dancer, and budget's tight, you can't go to 15 schools, you might get cut because of the dance, but it's probably in your best interest, because if it really is that rough, some schools will just cut you out and then you've just wasted a trip. Again, I'm talking highly competitive programs. Some of the others may not be that same way.
Okay. Karla, how about you?
Pretty much that's a straight ditto for us as well. The pre-screens for us though, we actually we do look at pre-screens. They are very important to our process and that sort of thing with accepted. And we look at everything in the pre-screens, including that wildcard video. But we don't actually use them to weed people out. We actually do see everyone who applies for an audition, which this past year was enormous, which was a good thing. It's a good problem to have. But the big thing is we want to see who you are and what you do best. That is the most important thing, not your highest note, not that you can emote all over the place. We are just interested in who you are and what you bring to the table. As far as the dance is concerned, dance will not keep you out at Viterbo University. But I do agree, if dance is a really weak spot for you, it's probably best to leave that out if you have that option, which I honestly can't remember.
I didn't know that was an option. I thought the pre-screens for musical theater were all very, you have to send these things in.
We hold dance calls, and so at that point we can find out the information that we want to know as far as the dance is concerned. But I honestly cannot remember, but I don't think you're required to submit any dance portions. We do, and sometimes I have watched them going, oh, why did they do that? It's not their strength, right? That's not, I always say, show off your A material. That is not that person's A material. Doesn't mean they didn't get in, right? Because that's something that we'll work with you on. But
so Matt, you answered a question that I had for later about the repertoire, which was, are you okay with having a pop song or a self-composed song be part of what you have to offer?
Yeah, and we love it. I mean, this year made the decision for 4 different people. We get down to the end where I think this year we had 125 people who were in our A pile, which was the list that we had to then narrow down. And, you would have several people who were very similar, and we were pulling our hair out trying to decide who to choose. And we would go through that list and be like, oh yeah, that's the one that played their own song. That was amazing. They're it. And that would be your deciding factor. So, if you have some special skill like that, highlight it, because it can make a big difference.
How about for classical? I'm sorry. How about for classical? If somebody is a composer, budding composer, and they bring a piece in that they've written to sing.
Absolutely, Christine. You know well that we are a big composition conservatory. We have a very big department, very lively, very active, and we have a great collaboration with our singers between the composition department too. So we're intrigued by that and impressed by that, and would love to hear those kinds of things. Absolutely, there's nothing barring anybody from presenting works like that. I think it's amazing, and it only heightens our excitement about these people.
That's great. At Ohio, Andrew?
Yeah, I'll say we have a large music therapy program here. So we have a lot of students who are interested in singing something other than just classical. And so we tend to, especially if we aren't sure what the heck's going on, say, what do you like to sing? Will you please sing your favorite blah, blah, blah song for us? And that can make a big difference about whether we let a student in. So, I'd suggest somebody have something ready if they're sort of in that kind of world.
Okay. All right. This was a great question that Amanda Kaiser had, and I know exactly where best question comes from. She said, what's the strangest wildcard video you've received? This is mainly from musical theater. Has a wildcard video ever changed your mind about a student? And I know that Amanda is getting this from the Tim Marquette Point Park poo eater story. So somebody pretended to eat, be in safari, and they picked up something and ate it. He said, do we really want a poo eat? There's probably chocolate, but do we really want the possibility that we could have a poo eater at Point Park? And I thought, other than the alliteration, no. So that was actually a thing that was no. So did you ever have a weird wild card that, strange, crazy wild card that you went, whoa, what was that all about?
I was going to say, well, that's a choice as far as the poo. I mean, make a strong choice. Yeah, we've had some pretty, and nothing quite like that, some crazy things. But I was, when I was looking at the questions, has it ever made you change your mind about a student? Absolutely, yes. It has made us take more of an interest since everything was virtual this year. We're holding auditions and all sitting in our own spaces texting with each other, and the dance teacher says, hey, take a look at this wild card video. It's really interesting, and it sparks a question in that student's interview, that sort of thing. So and I was interesting because a couple students were very surprised that we had watched the wild card videos. But know that they won't always get watched, but they will get watched at some places, and they could potentially make the difference. Again, we want to see who you are, and that wild card video is an opportunity for us to see something that you do that makes you special.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to the auditions. So were auditions live for anybody this year? They were, Matt.
Oh no, not this year. They were. I'm sorry. I was thinking
No,
we're already planning this coming year. So no, online. Sorry.
That was my next question. Will auditions be live in 2022?
Yes.
Yes, but I'll say we are also like, oh my gosh, there were so many things that we loved about that virtual format. And so we are very much keeping that as an open door, and some of the elements that we learned from that, as well as going back to the same thing that we've done in the past.
Which was another question I had was, is there going to be a hybrid option? And
oh yeah.
Okay.
I love the accessibility that gave a lot of students, and especially again in music theater, auditioning for 15 schools. Man, that really helped with the financial burden on students, because they can do a virtual audition with us, and then if they are accepted, make the decision if they want to travel to La Crosse, Wisconsin, to take a look at who we are and see if that they're a good fit. We recognize the financial burden, so we're going to do a hybrid, some auditions online next year, some in person, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Ours are all online, except if you live more than 200 miles away from the school, you have always had the option to do a video audition.
Sorry, I'm just checking to make sure people aren't texting me because they find out why the meeting ended. Students, did any of you audition in person? Was everything online? Everything's online? Okay. So how important, let's go about repertoire. This was a huge question. Students, how long before your auditions did you pick out your audition rep? Any regrets about what you picked out? Lauren, let's start with you.
I'm trying to think back to the beginning of this whole process, and I think I started with my songs at the very beginning of summer after my junior year is when I started trying to find things with my voice teacher, and then we definitely solidified those by I think July. So I was ready to film, early September into October and things like that. Any regrets I'd have about it, it's just definitely being really prepared and knowing that this is the song you're going for, and if you're going for that song, what choices are you going to make, doing your character analysis. And something I learned about this is I chose a song that may be considered overdone now, and I think that was a really big fear I had going into this process, is oh gosh, what if they've heard this a million times? But something my voice teacher and I worked on was just that if I can bring something different to this song, if it's something that they maybe haven't seen before, and if I can feel really confident and sing it really well, then I should absolutely go for that. And so I think that was the biggest thing I learned from preparing my rep.
Let me use that as a segue to find out about overdone songs, because that was a question I was going to ask teachers. What do you think about songs that are on the do not sing list because they've been done so many times? How do you feel if somebody shows up and sings On My Own? Or
I agree with Lauren. If you are going to bring something different and exciting and wonderful to it, that distinguishes you from the 15 other On My Owns that we heard. So there's that way of looking at it, but there's also another way of looking at bringing something maybe a little fresher and a little less done. So I think there's a balance to be found there, and your teacher can probably help you find that.
Okay. Anybody else have anything to say about that?
It's tricky. I mean, what Lauren said can be right. I do think there's stuff that's such low hanging fruit, like On My Own. I just wouldn't do that. Like, because what ends up happening is then we scratch our head and go, what have you been doing? If this is the only song that you felt was good enough to bring to the table, are you that serious about this? Where is your head? And if they're really good, we'll ask those questions. And sometimes it truly is a solid choice. It's acted well. And you're like, okay, I get it. But it definitely sometimes can make you scratch your head going, really? But I mean, if the talent's there at the end of the day and they're the right person for the program, we're not going to not take them. To me, it's all about helping set them up for, success. Like being like, this piece they're going to hear like 3 times and you're killing it. You're going to stand out.
Okay. Iyana, how long did you prepare for your audition? How far ahead?
I prepared for probably all of my junior year. I was in a magnet high school, so my teachers really paid attention to colleges really, really early. One of the songs I sung, I actually started performing my sophomore year of high school. My voice was completely different and it completely changed by the time I sung it for my pre-screenings, but I was preparing really, really early. But because of that, I felt like everything I was singing didn't feel right. So I threw in a song very last minute in a language I've never sung before. And that was a huge fear of mine. But I think that helped in my audition process, because a lot of the interviews that I had with people said they've never heard that song done. My teacher is a person who hates repetitive stuff. She hates the same songs. So I did a lot of things that people wouldn't normally give to people my age. So I feel like there was but like I said, there are some songs where I was practicing them since sophomore year, and I did throw a song in a month before I recorded my pre-screens. So I had a lot of fears on both ends of the spectrum.
Okay. Olive, how about you? I know we had stuff that we had worked on for a while that we used. Olive's my student. And then we also did some new things.
Yeah, we started really working on pre-screens, even though one of the songs was pulled from my sophomore year, was also right after I finished junior year. So I think June maybe. But I felt, sorry, my dogs are barking. I felt like it was good timing, and I don't really have any regrets about that. The only thing is, by the time I got to the pre-screens and some of my auditions, I was a little bit tired of the songs, I guess, just because I had been working on them for so long. But overall, it was pretty good. The one thing I regret that's a little bit different is worrying about college auditions since my freshman year. I don't know if anyone else can relate to this, but just spending all of high school thinking about college auditions and worrying about it years in advance was definitely set me up to be super anxious when I got there. So I know that's a little bit not so much the question, but that's my big regret, I think, is I should have waited for the right time and not had so much anticipatory anxiety about it, because I think that made it a little bit more stressful going into the process.
Teachers, how important is it to you? We talk about an overdone, but on the other side, how well received are songs that are relatively obscure? I always like really obscure music, and then I have found that not everybody appreciates the obscure music as much as I do, because they don't know it and don't have a basis to it when they're listening to it. But I really like obscure. But anyway.
I'm glad you asked this, because I was thinking about that so much through that last question. So I love obscure music. I assign a lot of obscure music. I like to think it's something that I'm good at, but there is a pitfall, which is that your pianist is going to play the music better if they know it. And so if you bring in some piece that they've never heard, that they've never played, and that's really strange, you might be asking for trouble if you've got a live pianist situation.
Right. Tell my students that if they have to, they can't bring something to an audition if I can't fake my way through it.
Exactly, same. So I personally don't think that there's anything wrong with going a little safe in an audition, just to know that you've got that safety of a pianist that's really going to be there to support you.
Okay.
Like they want to, you know.
Karla?
We love when you stump us, when you come in with something we've never heard before, and it's relatively rare, but it does happen occasionally. You know, I guess the big thing for us is it appropriate? Is it type, and what's type as we go through our changes in our society and we rethink type and that sort of thing as we're challenged to do. But is it appropriate for the voice? Is it appropriate for the type, the age of the singer, that sort of thing? You know, I can hear good work, whether it's my new philosophy, which I absolutely hate, or or it's something interesting and obscure. You know, I can't think of anything off the top of my head right now, but it's the work that really matters to me, not so much the title of the piece. I want to see what you bring to it. It's really about the student, not about stumping me, not about bringing in the most rarest thing I've ever heard. Because if you don't sing it, if you can't sing a tune, you can't sing a tune. That's the issue.
Matt?
I mean, I think Karla nailed it when she said, you know, we can see the good work. So I totally agree with that. What we always tell even our graduating seniors is, you know, if you have a song and you've sung it in hopefully outside of where you plan on using it, but let's say you've sung it at several places and people are like, oh my gosh, what is that? That's a song that's catching our ear on the first listen. It's probably going to work. But if everybody else is like, oh, that's interesting. What's that from? I wouldn't say that that's one of those songs that's popping. And so I think that
the inflection of what is that, as opposed to what is, you know?
Yeah. But, you know, but there's several songs that, you know, I've heard at different points, and on the first listen, you're like, wow, where'd you come up with that? And they're like, well, I did a workshop of a new musical and this was in it. And you're like, yeah, keep that, you know? So that's what, to me, I'm kind of looking for in the more obscure stuff.
Okay. What's your attitude about gender bending? Is it okay to use songs outside of the original gender of who the song was written for?
Nowadays, everything's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, with art song, you know, that's been happening for hundreds of years, you know?
Yep.
Okay. Now, that was a question somebody asked me. That was a good question.
You know, and one, just to put this on there though, on a question like this, as well as there, you know, some diversity questions, if they don't like it and that's important to you, it's not the school for you anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think that you have to, it's hard for students to do this, but you have to believe in your soul, who you are, and put your authentic self out there. And it feels vulnerable because you feel like it's a rejection of you, but you're better off to find out that this person is really prejudiced against blank and it wasn't going to work than end up at that school and find out it's not going to work.
Which then brings me to a question that somebody who registered this morning put in, which I really loved, which was, what steps is your institution taking to encourage repertoire from composers from underrepresented groups?
I will speak up about that because Peabody has really taken great strides and great initiatives to confront that issue and to bring it into focus. And I'm actually embarking on a 6-week course in a week or so, which is just about that, creating more diverse and equitable and innovative curricular changes. And so I'm excited about that because we're an old conservatory, and you know, we sing a lot of old dead white guys music, and we need to get with the program. So we're doing it, and I'm really happy about that. I'm excited to learn some new things myself.
And I'm pointing at people as they appear on my screen, which you may not be there where I'm pointing. But Iyana, that brings me to you just personally. You are getting very involved. You're going to be pursuing a lot of things regarding African American composers, correct? At Baldwin Wallace.
Yes, I am. That's probably going to be the focus I'm going to get all the classical training as everyone else, but I love singing Negro spirituals. I did an entire project on it for my senior capstone, And that is something that I'm very happy Baldwin Wallace is going to be helping me pursue.
Okay, I'm going to move on. So I want to get some more things. You have repertoire that you never want to hear again.
My new philosophy.
Yeah. I actually I never teach Seven Crudele because I 7 young middle schoolers sing it in a row all the same way at solo ensemble when I was judging one year. And it was like, so it's like, no, not teaching that. All right.
Glitter and be gay. Oh, it's just like,
Amen.
Matt,
Amen.
no,
Amen.
I love
that's
it.
Great.
I
love
love it.
it.
So I love it outside of an audition, but when it's at the audition that I'm just like, because I've yet to heard it done in the way that you hear it done by, pros who are really doing it. And I think it's one of those songs that people think they can nail. And you're like, oh, I've worked with people who really nailed it, and it's just hard. But
No
I mean,
18-year-old should be singing that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's my own opinion, but whew, yeah.
I use part of it as a vocal exercise, but that's about it.
I mean, it's a great song. I mean, and again, it's like what Karla said. When the person does come in and blow me out of the water, they'll get in. And it's just they haven't done it yet.
If you absolutely had to choose, does it matter more if students sing songs that are relevant to their age or to their range? That was the exact wording of the question. So, in other words,
we can have both. Could we have both?
I recently hosted a master class with a Broadway actor who told my students that they should have two of the students that were singing, which both were mine, to sing repertoire that was more age appropriate. Now, I wasn't having them sing like, Bring Him Home or, things like that. I have heard that Bring Him Home is a bad thing to do for college auditions, even if you did it as a role in high school, because it's too old for you.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, there are these stories that need to be told. And sometimes, especially when you're 17, 18 years old, you don't have the life experience to tell Jean Valjean's story at that point in the show when that comes up. And that's kind of where I although when we do, let's say Oklahoma, we need an Aunt Eller, right? We don't have a 60-year-old woman as a student, so we cast a student. But I mean, I find that when the students come in and tell the stories that they understand, that they can identify with, they have a better audition. It's a very sort of music theater thing to say, and I'm not sure I would say exactly the same thing with classical, but that's kind of how I look at that, is tell the story that you can relate to. Most of the time, a 60-year-old story is probably not something you can relate to.
What is the appropriate dress code? How do you expect somebody to dress for an audition? Let's go to classical first. Andrew got knocked off by a storm, so he'll come back and we'll ask him. But let's ask Elizabeth first. How do you expect people to dress for auditions at Peabody?
Well, this is an interesting issue because it can go all over the place. But I think the most important thing is that whatever you're wearing makes you look good. Doesn't distract us from you, but makes us see you, the person, not your dress, not the length of it, not the whatever color, the glittery nature of it. We don't want to be distracted by what you're wearing. We want it to enhance who you are, so we see you inside of that costume. So that's what I would say as a rule. And then ask your teacher, is this good? Get a second opinion. Get a fashion expert's opinion, whoever that be in your family or your friend who dresses well and you respect how they dress. Get an opinion.
Okay. Andrew, we were asking about what people should wear to auditions.
Sorry, everyone. Bad storms here. I think dress nice. I mean, we do not discriminate against kids that aren't dressed up, I'll be honest, because who knows what the situation is there. But if you've got the resources, wear the nicest thing that you have, short of a prom dress or a tux. Take a step or two back from that.
Okay, how about musical theater?
I'd say to wear what you would wear on a first date, and the first date that you want. So if you are like really edgy and you've got your ears gauged and you wear Doc Martens with your ripped up jeans on a first date, okay, bring it, because I want to see who you are authentically. And I'll tell you, that's real interesting to us at Shenandoah. So I'm going to definitely be hoping you can sing, act, and, do the other stuff. And then, it's equally as, interesting though for somebody who really has an amazing dress, and you look at their dress or their pantsuit. I've seen some incredible pantsuits where you just remember the pantsuit girl. She was amazing. And you remember that. So, first date.
Okay. Karla, how about you?
I can't add anything to that. That's it exactly.
Okay, great. Students, let's see. This was a question from another student. Students, how have you dealt with performance anxiety in your auditions? I know this year you had auditions that were virtual, so it wasn't like something that you had to really worry about standing in front of people and singing, but you have some, for the people who are going to be singing in front of people, and I'm going to have this happen again in 10 minutes. So if it happens again in 10 minutes, what's going to happen is same thing. I'll log back on. We'll all log back on. We'll see you then, but it's 10 minutes. I thought I fixed that this morning, but no. But at least it gives me the 10 minutes to tell you. How do you deal with performance anxiety on something that is as important as a college audition? If you can speak to that. Start with Iyana, sorry.
Well, this year, I guess it was very lucky that we had all virtual auditions. My pre-screening was the only recordings I needed to do. I actually didn't have to do any other auditions besides those. So I was very lucky in that sense. But in performing, I am actually more comfortable performing in front of people I don't know than people I'm aware of. So I haven't really faced much performance anxiety besides just wanting to do my best. And then it's really just about practice and me being comfortable with what I'm going to perform.
Okay. Olive, a couple of your final auditions were actually done in the moment, even though you were on tape, correct? Or on video?
Yeah, I had 4 like on Zoom, and then 2 that were pre-recorded. But I was like not sure how to answer this question, but I think for me it was just like being as well prepared as I could, and like I had a whole plan before each audition. Like it always helps me to like do yoga, because I've realized that like makes a huge difference in the way my voice ends up, and like making sure that I was eating something and having like my tea, and like what time I was going to warm up. Just like for me, like having everything planned out and having like a plan and a bunch of things that I knew would like help me to be as prepared as I could and be at my best really helped to like relieve the anxiety. Because then as soon as like it hit that time where I was like, okay, time to get ready, I was like in the zone, and I was like focused on getting ready, not so much like worrying about it. So I feel like I don't know if it's like, I don't think I was able to like get rid of any of that. Obviously, I don't know if anyone can get rid of performance anxiety, let me know. But but I feel like just like having my plan is just really helpful.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I just wanted to throw in something from a faculty point of view that sometimes helps students when I mention it. We're all just people. And after your audition, I'm going to be on a floor playing with Legos and Hot Wheels. So you can picture that, first of all, right? I'm 6'4". It is comical. But I say that because I think sometimes I can't remember who mentioned it, but they said they started from like sophomore year and they got everything up to be such a big pedestal. I think it was you, Olive. And, when you do that, you're right. You can walk in the room and be like, oh my God, but we're just like people who want to find the best people, and we're hoping you're it. And if you come into the room and you're nervous, we get it, because you're 18. And many years ago, we were in your shoes. We get it. If you're so nervous you slip up and forget something, that's okay, because I was 18 once too and I forgot something at Bowling Green University. So I remember very clearly still. So, just kind of keep that in mind. We are human. We teach because we want to help the next generation. We know that you're nervous coming into the room and we're rooting for you. We want you to do well. And so just try to allow that to sink in and remind yourself they want me here, they want me to do well here, and they're normal people and I'm just sharing part of myself with them.
Yeah, can I pick up on that? I think it's Joyce DiDonato who says that the best way to alleviate your nerves is to be prepared. And so I'm a big proponent of that, that if whether it be on stage, I mean, I teach and direct opera all the time. So I'm always like, your number one job is to memorize, memorize, memorize. And so like, the more comfortable you feel with your piece, the more comfortable you're going to feel in front of all those people.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren, do you have anything to add about your experience?
Yeah, so I'm somebody who gets very nervous, especially for the audition portions of performance. Like, get me on a stage in front of a million people, it's fine. But the second that I have to do it in front of like 3 panel members, it's very nerve-wracking for me. And that was something that I would think about, like Olive said, in my freshman year, like waiting to go into these auditions with a very small amount of people. So that was a big stressor for me when I first started this process. But at my very first audition, I came up with a plan, like a ritual, but a ritual that would help, center myself and prepare me. I did like a guided meditation, and then I'd do my whole warm up process with plenty of time before the audition. I'd have something to eat, I'd drink my water, and then just get myself prepared to turn my camera on and give it everything I can. And I think what really helped is, again, that the people on the other side of the camera want you to do just as well as you want to do. And that was something that was really comforting. And a lot of the information sessions for a lot of my programs really emphasize that. And going to those sessions beforehand also really helped to kind of meet these people before you were going to be in kind of that high stakes situation.
Could I just add to that, Christine?
Sure.
I just wanted to say, I'm thinking back to a million years ago when I was doing auditioning. Audition skill is different than performing skill, as Lauren was sort of alluding to, right? When you're in a show and you have a costume and you have colleagues and you have an orchestra in the pit and you have a stage and crew and all that swirling around you, it's sort of, it's a different kind of energy to fit yourself into. An audition is a completely different set of skills and calls on a completely different kind of energy that you have to kind of conjure up in that moment. And so I love the idea, Lauren and others have said, just kind of having a routine, have an audition day or audition hour before routine, when you're gonna warm up, how often you kind of do some vocalizes throughout up until you do your audition. But also, one other thing I think could be really key and really helpful is practice auditioning. Practice. Make yourself a little 3-person panel of your brother and your best friend and whoever, and do an audition. Do mock auditions. Do many of them until you start to feel more comfortable and figure out how to call on that energy, that burst of energy that you've got to have that puts you right in the moment, in the piece, and turns it on. It's like turning on the faucet, and that's different than being in a performance. So you're all on target here with your ideas about that.
Okay, folks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to game the system, and I'm going to end the meeting and restart it now so that way we won't be in the middle of a sentence. So come right back. This is for those of you who joined us late. Zoom is being stupid. So I will be right back. Repinning everybody so they're back on camera. Oh, where did I just lose Lauren? I saw her. There she is. Okay. And Karla. Is Andrew there? There he is. Okay, he's right under me. Like finding people where they are. All right, so I'll get my face back on camera. Okay. Oh, in myself too. All right, so the thing I was going to ask then is, because I thought this was going to be a great question. Somebody asked, what are deal breakers? What's a deal breaker? Andrew.
Just tons of mistakes. I mean, singing wrong notes, singing wrong rhythms, wrong notes are really like the biggest issue, you know. And that's coming from our area of a classical department, and you know, Mozart's Mozart. There's no playing, and we all know it. So I always tell my kids, everybody knows this, so you can't make any mistakes.
I'd
Matt?
say consistently, oh, sorry, jumping in, consistently singing out of tune. That's a deal breaker.
I tell you, the deal breaker for me is how you're acting to our staff, faculty, or really actually the staff and students when you think we're not watching. So I tend to get there early and I can watch students signing in a little bit. I'm usually talking to somebody else, but they don't know who I am yet. And I'm watching them out of the side of my eye and I'm looking for attitude. And then I go to the dance call. I can't dance to save my life, but I'm there to watch everybody on the sidelines and see how they're treating each other. And when I start seeing ones who are being bossy all the time or ones who are only focused on themselves or trying to show off, I keep a note of that. And if you ever have one of our students walk in and be like, please don't, it's out. So, you know, all those interactions, they matter. So really, you know, be kind, be caring.
Okay. Karla.
All of the above. Be a good person. Watch your step. Be prepared, as prepared as you can be. I always think of whenever I do auditions in New York, the second I would leave the hotel, I would start being nice to anybody. Anybody bumped on me, I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. Because you never know that person next to you on the subway who stepped on your foot by accident isn't, you know, the artistic director of the company. So I just sort of had this rule, not that I would be a jerk to him anyway, but I just had this rule that, again, just you be nice on audition days, period, end of story, because it's just so important, and it's just important to be a good person too.
Just be a Midwesterner. Okay. What are some of the most surprising moments in an audition that helped a student stand out? This is a question that came out a lot, was how do I stand out? What were some of the most surprising moments that helped a student stand out and ultimately get accepted?
If we decided to work with somebody, that person played and they were open to being worked with. I can think of a situation where a student came in and, you know, I'm not the chair, by the way. I had the music theater voice area, not the whole program. They wouldn't trust me with that. But the chair of the department leaned over to me when this person was singing out of tune, and he said, you know, I'm really interested in this student. What do you think? And I said, I think it's tension based, and he has some training in Alexander. So he got up there and started working with the student, and boom, they let go. Everything came in tune. But it was only because that student was open to the work. And that really goes back to what Matt was saying of just that attitude and being open to criticism, open to compliment as well, open to working and playing. It's so important.
Andrew?
I do that all the time. Every other audition, every third audition, I get up and I work with somebody for like just 3 minutes just to see how they react and to see if they can make that adjustment that we're asking for. And that openness and that sort of ability to just like turn on a dime is definitely something that has saved several students that we just weren't sure about.
Elizabeth?
I think probably tipping points for me have been when, you know, someone sings beautifully. We have lots of people come in who sing beautifully and emote well, but when they give themselves, when they really go that extra leap out of the song or the text and communicate. When I feel that I'm being communicated with, um, that wakes me up, that excites me, that interests me, and all of us. So that, if we're just talking about how someone is singing their audition.
Matt.
We're very interactive in our application process on purpose. So we do an hour-long Q&A with the students. We do a 45-minute dance call with the students, and all faculty are present for all of that. Then we do a group vocal warm-up with the students, and we're all present at that. And then they come in one at a time. But when we're going out in halls, we talk to them and really try to make everybody just chill out. And those students you meet who talk to you like they are an adult at your level, ready to do the work, and it's not putting on anything, they're just authentically them and super comfortable around adults, sticks out so good. You see that and you're like, this is going to be a really good fit. So to me, that's a big tipping point when you feel that energy, because you're going to graduate at 21 and maybe go straight into a national tour. So, you're going straight into a national tour where your director's 50 years old, and you need to go in there and be comfortable enough to have that person's faith in your performance. So if you've already got that in high school, let that show, because it's gold.
I'm going to move to the interview. You talked about interviews. Do you all have interviews at your schools? Okay. All right. Somebody asked this, and I'm trying to figure out what the trigger was for this question, because it was like, students, what was the most shocking, strange question you were asked in the audition process? Anybody have a strange question they were asked?
I have kind of a strange question. I can't remember what school it was for, but the first question they asked me when I finished all of my material was, if I could choose a superpower, what superpower would I choose? And that was not something that, I prepared for to have a polished answer. And I think that was probably one of my favorites because, I got to think of something on the spot and kind of show them my thought process and a little bit of who I was.
Okay. Olive, anything for you? Oh.
It wasn't really strange, but at my LIU interview, it was like a group interview, and they asked, the first question was like, what do you think needs to be like changed about the theater industry as it is now? And then they were like, Olive, let's start with you. So I didn't have any time to like prepare, but I also got to I didn't have to worry about like repeating anything. But yeah, I guess I thought it was going to be more like, why do you want to do this? Like that kind of stuff. Like, I don't know. And then it was like very like deep, but I guess I like spent time trying to prepare for the interview questions, but like then I got in a question that I wasn't prepared for and it turned out fine. Like I felt really happy with my answer and it was like very genuine. So I feel like the interview parts, like you don't have to stress about it too much. Just like be authentic in your answer.
Iyana, how about you?
At my University of Tennessee interview, they asked me what I would do if I couldn't sing, or if I like didn't want to have a singing career, which I thought was weird because I was expecting like, what do you want to pursue and stuff like that. I honestly didn't even have an answer, and I felt like they liked that I didn't have an answer because I'd never thought about it before.
All right, let's move on to acceptance and aftermath. What is, okay, how many people do you accept a year at your school generally? Let's start with how I'm looking at people on the screen. So let's start with Matt.
We usually try to accept about double of what we're going for. So if we're going for a class of 18, we'll accept 36. We sometimes have a feeling that in that 36, trying to simplify, we'll have maybe like 5 students that we're pretty darn sure aren't coming to us because they're also getting into Juilliard and Carnegie Mellon and Yale and wherever else. So when you've got enough of those in the pile, we accept another 5, knowing you're probably going to be replacing them immediately. So sometimes it'll bump up a few. So but there's a window, but it's like 36 to 40 on those years where you're looking for 18. And if we have a year we're looking for 24, it's like 48 to 54.
Okay. Do you have a wait list at all or no?
Yeah, we call it priority hold. And I think what's important for students to remember is, again, well, at any school, if you're on that priority hold list, they liked you a lot. It's just that somebody else had another thing. At Shenandoah, it might be that somebody played guitar and you don't. Otherwise, we loved you. And so you getting in off of the priority wait list shouldn't feel like an insult or anything bad. It's a crazy industry. So, you know, when you get moved up, embrace it. That's a good thing. All that matters really is when you get to school, you prove to them you deserve to be on that wait list and you deserve to be moved up. And that comes from your work ethic.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, so we, I think, probably accept about 3 times as many as we will ultimately expect to come. And those are kind of based on the statistics over the years that's determined kind of normally what happens. Our voice department is about between 110 and 125 strong. So it depends on how many students we graduate the year before as to how many we can take the next year. So,
And that is bachelor's, master's, artist,
that's
BPD,
everybody,
doctor.
everybody, all the singers.
Okay, Andrew.
We accept about 20 or 30 students every year. And that's just sort of consistently based on the numbers of students that we're getting auditioning.
Okay. Karla?
I think that, again, our numbers were huge this past year as far as our auditions were concerned. This is going to sound nutty. I think we accepted for our incoming class about 150 people. But we compete with Shenandoah. We compete with University of Michigan and Cincinnati and these other wonderful programs. So we know that, you know, probably 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 are probably going to go elsewhere. So in the end, we ended up with a class of 24, which was right as far as music theater is concerned. With the broader spectrum, I think we're like 36 or 40 with theater as a part of that as well, because we are a Department of Theater and Music Theater. So a class of about 24, and we feel really good about those numbers. We always get a little nervous when we make those offers, but every year it seems to work out that way.
Okay, and you're undergrad only at Viterbo, correct?
Yes, undergraduate only.
Okay. All right, how important is it to be a triple threat? Will the lack of a strong dance background prevent the student from getting into a musical theater program? And what about the acting?
So that's a good question. At Viterbo, dance will not keep you out. We are, I mean, I'll be completely honest, we have a good dance program. But we are definitely in a building phase. We just hired on a second full-time faculty member. Viterbo, the music theater program, has just grown exponentially in the last 7 or 8 years and really come onto the national scene. So we are working to build that. If the other 2 skills are really strong, we will take someone who is not a dancer and hope to make them a good mover by the time they leave. What was your other part of your question?
The other acting.
That for us is maybe a little bit more heavily weighted. This part, the singing and the acting in particular, are even though again the dance is very important to us, those are the things that we are quite strong with in our program, and we are looking for. We just need to see if there's potential and talent in that area. So acting could potentially keep somebody out. If you've got a great voice but you're just not an actor, we might recommend you go over to music if you feel that would be a good fit for you. Yeah.
Andrew. That's not really an issue for you guys.
Yeah, not really relevant for me.
Right.
I did music theater for years, and so I've been in all of this world, but right now I'm not working with that at all.
Then Matt.
Yeah, for us, I say every year we probably take 4 to 8 non-dancers who, you know, and they're usually incredible actors and singers, and you hear them sing and you're just like, we can't not have them. So, okay, you know, and we'll move on with it. Acting is we end up taking the actors over singers in a lot of instances. And there's something, So like if somebody comes in, they sing great, but the acting's missing in the monologue, you try to give them an adjustment, they can't take it, then we have concerns about how they'll do on the acting program, and they won't be able to make the cut no matter how good the voice is. But that's becoming less and less of an issue. We're starting to see better and better combined packages. So, but that's just us. And again, I think it depends a lot program to program. If it's a BM program where, it is a more music heavy degree, they're going to probably weight singing more heavily. Ours is a BFA.
Okay. I want to add this question came in this morning that I thought was great. In a theoretical situation, a teacher must choose only one of two auditioners. Would they choose singer one, who has an exceptional voice but mediocre everything else, musicality, preparation, languages if you're singing classical, presentation, etc., or singer number two, who has a mediocre instrument but exceptional everything else? Where would you go? Carlos is two.
I would likely say number two as well, but I wouldn't exclude number one completely.
I would be very excited about number one. Everybody else in my department would be excited about number two, and that's where we land.
Okay.
I would say number two, because we, instead of doing a senior showcase, bring agents and casting directors to campus. So we had about 20 something this year, and across the board, none of them were paying attention to the voice first. In fact, if it was sung too technically perfect, they would point it out and talk about how it was a problem. So in our world and trying to prepare the students for that, we do that, and that's a whole other conversation. There's a lot to be discussed on that one.
Okay. Prestigious schools, this is my controversial question. Prestigious schools are often criticized for taking students who are already finished products rather than ones with potential. How do you feel about that generalization?
I disagree with that. Nobody's done, especially at this age. I mean, it's just impossible.
Okay.
I don't think any of us are interested in a finished product. Otherwise, then you should go straight to the Met or Broadway. And I think that goes back to, students and the anxiety, which is very, very real, and the things that come up sort of in the cortex, that those ideas that ruminate in there that say I'm not good enough, or I'm not a finished product, therefore I won't get in. Understanding that behind the table, that's not what we're interested in. We are interested in potential. We are interested in talent. We are interested in somebody who wants to work and who will do the work.
Elizabeth?
Yes, I think Karla said it well. Second hers.
Okay. Matt?
My heart as an educator is where Karla is like, I love the hard worker, and I actually find it way more fulfilling as a faculty member to transform somebody. The realities of where I teach is we are looking a lot of times for those people that we know may not even make it through the degree. So we have a student who's taking her sophomore year, I think it is, off, because she's going to be Dawn in the national tour of Waitress. We lost a freshman a few years ago to be Evan Hansen on Broadway, and he's now one of the lead characters in the High School Musical TV show that's on Disney right now. We have a kid coming in who was on Broadway. He was the kid in Neverland when it was on Broadway. And we have the connections and faculty to help those kids. Most of my colleagues, like our music director, was the original music director of Young Frankenstein and the Producers. And, so he can help take those kids who are ready and open up doors for them. As an educator, it's not as fun to me, honestly. But we're a $33,000 a year school that doesn't have huge scholarships. And so at the end of the day, when my colleagues are like, but that kid will work. And I'm going, well, for as expensive as we are, and you have a track record of saying when someone's going to work, they're going to work, I feel a little bit better about them coming to our $33,000 a year school. So I have my own moral problems and issues with that, because I come from two unemployed parents going into college with a 2.6 GPA, and so I don't love it by any means. But, I also don't love the one student we have who left college with $120,000 of loan debt. with a single mother, and he's driving FedEx trucks to try to pay off his debt. And I don't love that either. So, these are the terrible, for all these students, these are the things that give me acid reflux at night after audition weekends and audition days, because I feel like at a lot of times we have to sit back and make bad decisions. And you just sit there and scratch your head and go, well, which is the least bad of this particular decision? And it's terrible. But, our hearts are always trying to look out for what's best for the students and trying to do everything we can to improve. And we all learn along the way. You're constantly learning. It never stops.
Okay. Teachers, do you offer lessons to prospective students before they come on board? Like if they've been accepted, but they've also been accepted other places?
Yeah, I do. We do. I think if we're reached out to, we certainly will accommodate.
Do they have
It's
to
really,
pay for it? Are you doing just like?
yeah, it's a nominal fee, but yes.
Okay.
And I think it's kind of critical. I mean, I'd love to hear the students' perspectives on that. But you're going to be working with this person for the next 4 years of your life, one-on-one every week. And it's pretty important that you're going to be able to establish a rapport with them, and you can feel that pretty quickly in a trial lesson, I think.
Does anybody else offer lessons to their?
Yeah, we offer them, and we are happy to teach anybody who reaches out and asks for it. And that's actually one of the things that I wrote down before this whole thing started, is that that's something that everybody should be trying to do. It's not just about finding a school. It's not just about finding a program. It's not even just about finding like a choir that you like or something. You need to be looking for the voice teacher that you're going to be working with, especially if you're doing that vocal performance thing.
I will teach perspective lessons. It's the hard thing for me is just my schedule and sometimes the prospective students that come to visit, and I'm not available to teach. That's the only hard thing that can work out for me sometimes is just finding the time to do this. But when I can, and we do not charge them a fee for that when I can make that work.
Matt?
Same as Karla.
Okay. Time is rushing, although we did lose time because of stupid Zoom. Quick question, students, you can just, raise your hand. How many of you know who you're going to study with in the fall? Anybody? Do students have a say, teachers, in who they get for a teacher?
Our students definitely do. We ask them to make a first, second, and third choice when they apply, or at some point along the application process. And if they don't, we contact them and say, it would be great if you did. Your acceptance is not based on making a teacher choice, but I guess we want to feel like you want to come to study with someone there. So we want to help you figure that out.
Okay. Let's see what I was going to say. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm getting distracted by chat and things. All right. Let's go on to closing real quickly. Karla, since you're an undergrad only school, do your freshmen get chances to perform?
Yes, they do. So we hold auditions the semester prior. So our fall shows are already cast. They were cast in the spring, and of course that doesn't include freshmen. But in the fall, freshmen do have the opportunity to audition and be cast in spring shows. So it's the first. We found that kind of fit the balance because we did have a policy for a while of not casting freshmen the first year. And they spoke with us and said, we'd really like you to change this. We changed it. And then it was actually really tough on some of the freshmen coming in, getting cast, having to be on and learn all of these new things and our process and everything, and do their coursework. And it actually bit us, in the ass a couple of times with students, where a student just couldn't handle it and either had to drop out of the production or out of school. So we learned that we can still give them chances, but just hold off 1 semester, let them start to get used to things and learn how we work, and then we can cast.
Okay, how about at Ohio?
I know for our musical theater program that our freshmen do not perform freshman year. Same thing in all of the theater program, but in my program, I get them up there right away. Um, Anybody who wants to participate in opera in the fall when we do all of our opera scenes can, and I'll find a place for them. They might be kind of hiding in the back, but I'll find a place for them to get up and do it. And then in the spring, I am much pickier about who's involved in the main stage production.
Okay. At Peabody?
Our policy pretty much is no, freshmen don't perform in the operas at this point. That doesn't mean they can't perform in other ways, but kind of like what Karla was saying, it's a huge adjustment as a freshman, and we feel like there's just a lot of things to become accustomed to and to figure out as a freshman. Being on the opera stage may not be the best fit.
Okay. And at Shenandoah?
When I came here, they cast freshmen in the fall, but I never saw it go well. I always saw the student end up isolated from their peer group, especially if they were the only freshman that was cast. And so about 2 years ago, we started making the shift to no freshman fall, just because I feel like I want them to become really good friends with their cohort. And if they're the only one that's in rehearsal in the evenings for the first 6 weeks of school, they've just missed out on super important bonding time. And I think that's more important for their life than they know. And so we're trying to look out for them.
All
Love
right.
that.
This is the last question for the teachers, and that is, what is the number one thing you would tell a student considering auditioning for your program? And I'll start with you, Matt, and we'll go backwards.
We may not be the right one for you, and that's okay. And you may think that we are, and if you don't get accepted for some reason, maybe we didn't. And please don't take it personal. It's not. There's so many people that we find interested in some way, but at the end of the day, we have to make these really hard decisions. So just grow where you're planted, right? So what school you land in, do the work. Because if you go do the hard work, you never know what's going to come out. My most successful student is from SUNY Cortland. Former students from SUNY Cortland when I was teaching there, and to this day, it's still a very small, pretty unknown program. But this kid was playing Chris in the Miss Saigon Broadway tour right before COVID, and he's got there after 11 years of working nonstop. So you know what? Grow where you're planning, because you can make great things happen if this is really meant to be.
Okay, Elizabeth.
I would say believe in yourself, believe in the fact that you love to sing and want to sing and have to perform. And we will see that, and we will help you grow that germ of an idea that just can't be suppressed.
Andrew.
We always tell all of our students that they need to come. They need to be on campus. They need to sit in a class or take a sample lesson and really feel what it feels like to be a student here. And I think that you either fall in love with that place because of that situation, or you realize that that's not the place for you. I know that's exactly how I found my school. Just accidentally, it was bottom of my list, went there, top of my list.
Karla.
I love that idea of grow where you're planted. That just so I'm gonna name drop now. I have a student who she is playing Catherine Howard in Six on Broadway. That's Samantha Polly. She's a former student of mine. And Sam she auditioned for 3 schools and got into Viterbo, and that was it. Because she wasn't a dancer, and people wouldn't look past the fact that she wasn't a dancer. She's a very good mover. And it quite literally was grow where you're planted. And her growth, at that time, it was a very different school, and it was tough for her. Things were really tough for Sam at that time in that school, in that particular kind of training. But she persevered, she stuck with it, and things were difficult. So I guess the other thing I would say is fit. Go where you fit best, and the only way you can know that is to visit the school. I really, really do not recommend, get auditioning and never visiting the school, which you can easily do in music theater, very, very easily. Go spend a day with the students, talk to the students, talk to the faculty. Fit is so important. It's as important for you as it is for us as faculty. We have to fit in as well. So grow where you're planted. And if you have a choice, make fit the most important, not the name of the school, not the name of the teacher or the fact that Sam Polly went there, right? That doesn't matter. What matters is you, and you aren't the same person as Sam Polly. So you've got to go where the experience is the best for you.
Okay, I'm going to ask students the 2 questions back to back, and you can answer them both because we're at time. If you could request that something be handled differently in the audition process, what would you tell the colleges and programs to change? And what would you tell your high school freshman self if you could go back in time? Let's start with Iyana. I don't know why I'm pronouncing your name wrong now. I said it right first.
I would tell my freshman self to not plan as much. I'm the type of person that liked to plan every single step of my life. Like I had a plan until I was 30, and none of it's going the way I wanted it to go. So I would say stop planning and stop stressing. And then on what I would tell the faculty, I feel like I was kind of not cheated, but like I feel like I didn't get the full experience that normally people get. But I would say have like more panels and stuff like this, or just like make them more known, because I feel like if I did this a year ago, this panel right here, I would have learned so much. I've learned stuff sitting here right now. So I feel like have more things like this, and if you have them, promote them, I guess.
I like doing these kind of things. Just as something I discovered I was actually good at this past year, when you're sitting around going, well, I can't do a show right now. How about if we do a master class or a panel discussion or World Voice Weekend, which was kind of a bust in a way, because not that many people came to it, but it was a really actually excellent thing that I did. And maybe I'll do it again next year. Let's see. But that was, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. And all right, so let's move on. Let's ask Lauren.
So if I could talk to freshman Lauren, first of all, I'd say like chill out, just first and foremost. And then I'd also just this is something my mom tells me all the time, is everything is going to end up the way that it is supposed to. And so even though I maybe dreamed of one thing happening through all my middle school and early high school years and it doesn't happen, that doesn't mean that dream is gone. It just means that it's shifted to something else. And I feel like I've learned through this process that there's always something out there to reach for, and maybe you just need to discover what that is. And then if I could change anything about the audition process, I know this might be a difficult ask, but I found that the most stressful time was just that waiting period when I was done with all my auditions and it was completely out of my hands. I'm somebody who likes to, be able to know what's going on and be in the know, and this just wasn't something that I could do for this process. And so I'd say that when a school like releases a deadline for when they'll announce those, just to like stick to that and have a very like firm date, because a lot of them were like they wouldn't tell us and it was like a little surprise every once in a while. And so yeah, that would just I think ease a lot of our nerves in that point in the process.
Okay, and Olive, we'll finish up with you. We started with you for the students.
Okay, well, I hate to sound redundant, but my freshman year self really did not need to be worrying about college auditions. And I wish that I had just like not really thought about it so much until like it was actually time to think about it, because I spent so much time like worrying and worrying about it, and it just didn't need to happen. And then if I could change something, I think this, I mean, I have no frame of like for this, but I feel like all my auditions were so fast that I didn't really know how to process them. But like there was one audition where I tried to say like thank you so much for creating such a great environment, and I got cut off. Like I didn't get to finish thanking them. And it was just like a little off-putting. I feel like I could have felt better about some of my auditions if I had had the chance to like connect with the panel just slightly more. And I understand like the need to get it done quickly, but like you can't like give me a second to thank you. Like it was a little rough. So I guess that's the only thing I can think of. But overall, like it was a pretty good experience. I mean, it was hard, but like I I didn't really think there was too much that I would change.
And what are you looking forward to, everybody, I was gonna ask. I wasn't gonna ask that question, but I will ask it. What are you looking forward to most, Olive?
I'm really excited to just meet a lot of new people and have like a lot of new experiences. And I'm really excited to live in New York, and just like get back into it. And like, because I feel like the college audition process very much like I came out with a lot of burnout, especially doing it during COVID was like really exhausting. So I'm really excited to like start fresh and like have like a renewed energy.
Great, Lauren.
First of all, no math class. Amazing. I'm very much looking forward to that. And also, my program is a conservatory program. I'm going to BOCO next year, and that is just something that I am so excited to experience, is having these classes where it is all theater, all voice, all dance, all acting, all the time. And that is something that is just super exciting to me.
Great. And Iyana.
I feel like I'm going to sound just like Lauren, but I'm very excited to be in a conservatory program. I got my schedule probably a week ago, and I'm taking one English class and the rest is music, all day music. And I appreciate that. I miss performing. I miss singing. I miss being in front of my teacher. So I'm excited to have all that back.
Okay, folks, we have 3 minutes left on the timer before we get bumped off again. So I want to thank Matt and Elizabeth and Andrew and Karla and Lauren and Iyana and Olive for joining us today. Thank you so much. I think this was wonderful. I have more questions that didn't get answered because we couldn't be here 90 days. We would have been here 90 days instead of 90 minutes. But I will be sending out the questions that I've compiled, and so that you have this to look at and look at the websites or ask people so that you have an idea of maybe there's something that you didn't think about before in the process. So thank you very much, and we'll see what I think of to do next. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Loved this.
Thank you.